Hi friends, how are you today? I'm so glad you're here. I have some great stories to share with you. 3 really fun bedtime stories. I think you guys are really gonna like them. I had a really good day today. I hope you guys had a really good day today. Our very first story is called The Day You Begin. It's about your first time doing something. I really like this one because starting something new can be really scary. You know, starting a new school or going to a new class or trying to make a new friend. Starting new things can be really scary. So I think you guys will really like this one. Kind of helps you understand everybody feels that way. Everybody gets scared.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please.
Everybody gets scared. Everybody gets worried, and that happens to all of us. So, The Day You Begin is written by Jacqueline Woodson and illustrated by Rafael Lopez. I really like the pictures in this one. All right. Here's our title page. The Day You Begin. Our author here, Jacqueline Woodson, illustrated by Rafael Lopez. And of course our publisher down here, Nancy Paulson Books. Behind the title page, we've got our illustrations starting. Looks like a city, some tall buildings. There's a bird. Ah, yeah. And there's a friend reading a book on a balcony, it looks like. Oh, that looks like fun. I would enjoy that. I like to read outside. Oh, there's friend. Friend looks a little shy. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. Maybe it will be your skin or your clothes or the curl of your hair. They all look different. There will be times when no one understands the words, the way the words curl from your mouth, the beautiful language from the country you left behind. My name is Rigoberto. We just moved here from Venezuela. And because they don't understand, the classroom will fill with laughter until the teacher quiets everyone. People do laugh a lot at what they don't understand. Sometimes that hurts feelings. Rigoberto, from Venezuela, your teacher says so soft and beautifully that your name and homeland sound like flowers blooming from the first bright notes of a song. Excuse me. There will be times when the words won't come. Your own voice, once huge, now smaller, when the teacher asks, "What did you do last summer? Tell the class your story." We went to France, Shayla says. These shells came from a beach in Maine. A boy named Jonathan holds out a jar filled with tiny shells so fragile they look like they'll turn to dust in your own untraveled hands. My whole family went to India, Spain, South Carolina. Each souvenir a small triumph of a journey, their travels going on and on. really pretty pictures. I've never been to a lot of those places. I've never been to France. I've never been to Maine. I've never been to India or Spain. I've never even been to South Carolina. I haven't traveled a whole lot, friends. And as you stand in front of that room, you can only remember how the heat waved as it lifted off the curb, and your days spent at home caring for your little sister who made you laugh out loud and hugged you hard at nap time. You can only remember the books you kept on reading long after she had fallen to sleep. And in that room, where no one else is quite like you, you'll look down at your own empty hands and wonder, what good is this when other students were flying and sailing and going somewhere? Not everyone travels. Some people can't. Some people don't like to. There will be times when the lunch your mother packed for you is too strange or too unfamiliar for others to love as you do. Something you have that's a favorite that maybe other people don't understand. That happens to everyone too. When even your friend Nadia will wrinkle her nose and say, "What's in there anyway?" And you'll wonder how she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and kimchi. You'll wonder why she doesn't remember that rice is the most popular food in the whole world. I love rice. There will be times when the climbing bars are too high, when the run is too fast and far, and the game is one you can't even really play. I don't want him on our team. You can watch. Maybe you can have a turn later. Oh, we're not all good at all games. Some of us are good at some games, and some people are good at other games. I was never very good at climbing on monkey bars like this because I would always get scared. There will be times when the world feels like a place that you're standing all the way outside of. And all that stands beside you is your own brave self. Steady as steel and ready, even though you don't know what you're ready for. There you are. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you until the day you begin to share your stories. My name is Angelina, and I spent the whole summer with my little sister. You tell the class, your voice stronger than it was a minute ago, reading books and telling stories, and even though we were right on our block, it was like we got to go everywhere. Oh, books can make you feel like that, can't they? Your imagination can take you anywhere you like. Your name is like my sister's, Rigoberto says. Her name is Angelina too. And all at once, in the room where no one is quite like you, the world opens itself up a little wider to make some space for you. This is the day you begin to find the places inside your laughter and your lunches, your books and your travel and your stories, where every new friend has something a little like you and something else so fabulously not quite like you at all. Oh, those are the best kinds of friends. The ones that have something a little like you and then something else that's nothing like you. And you can share the thing that's the same and you can learn about the thing that's different. Ah, I love meeting friends like that. And look, now they're friends. That's all it takes. That's all it takes sometimes to make a new friend is find one thing that you have in common, something that you share together. Like maybe you have the same favorite movie or song, or maybe you both love sunsets, or maybe your favorite your favorite vegetable is tomatoes. You never know. You never know until you talk to somebody what you might share with them. All right, so I've got another story here. That first story was a little long, and our last story is also a little long. So I picked kind of a short story for the middle. This one is one of my favorite books. We got this in, I think, 2 years ago, and I really love learning about other cultures. Every year for summer reading program, I'm really, really, really lucky that I get to partner with my friend Richie from the S&T University, and he works in the International Affairs Office. And he always brings over students who are studying here in the United States, and they come and they tell stories about where they're from, and it's always a great time. It's my favorite program because it's so interesting to meet people that live a different way from you. So this is a great book, Different Cultures. Oh, and this, friends, this is a nonfiction story. Nonfiction means that it's real. Different Cultures by Rebecca Pettiford. And you'll notice instead of illustrations here, we have photographs. And that is a real person right there. That makeup looks familiar to me. I wonder if it might look familiar to some of you. Let's see. Well, let's learn about it in this book. In nonfiction books, you find a table of contents. A lot of them have different sections that tell you about what you're learning about in the book. Our first section is called Many Ways. We all have different ways. Alma speaks Spanish at home. Why? Her mom is from Mexico. My friend Brianna's parents are also from Mexico. It is Kwanzaa. Mark wears a kufi. His family lights candles. The kufi is the hat. Aki eats sushi. It is raw fish. It is part of her culture. And there's a picture of sushi right there. And I think I know a lot of friends who've had sushi. I know I've talked to some of my friends before. I know a lot of my friends really like sushi. Oh, remember how we talked about rice in our last book? You can see the rice on the outside and on the inside of those sushi rolls. Lilo dances the hula. It is from Hawaii. Wow, she's graceful. I love their skirts. It is Diwali. Nita decorates. She uses colored sand. She uses lights. Look, a flower. Neat. Ben is Amish. He rides in a buggy. Why? His family does not use a car. I used to live in a place, friends, in Missouri, way up in the northeast part of Missouri, where there were a lot of Amish people, and they were really, really nice. Ty dances at a powwow. Wow! Look at his colorful dress. Listen, he has bells on his ankles. Ty looks like he's celebrating powwows with Native Americans. I have a lot of Native American friends, but the one I always think of is, of course, Miss Sarah at the library, and then my best friend, Bambi. It is Eid. Ali's family gives gifts. They share a feast. Yum! Aw, they look like they're having a wonderful time. I love pictures of families laughing together. We all have different ways. What are some of yours? It looks like this family is celebrating Hanukkah. That's a menorah. And back here is the index. I skipped a page. I wanted to show you guys these back 2 pages. This one says, your ways. Think about some of the different practices mentioned in the book. Then look at the pictures and think of your own culture as you answer the questions. Is there a special dance that is part of your culture? Is there a special food you eat? What holidays do you celebrate? What language does your family speak? And here, this is a picture glossary. So these are some of the words that we talked about that you might not know. This picture talks of, this very first picture is of the Amish, and the definition that they have listed here: Amish, a Christian group whose members live a traditional way of life. Next, we have culture, the beliefs and practices of a racial, religious, or social group. Diwali is the Hindu festival of lights held in October or November. Some holidays change. Eid, short for Eid al-Fitr, the Muslim holiday that ends the fasting period of Ramadan. And Ramadan is a different holiday that the Muslims celebrate. Kwanzaa, an African American holiday that begins December 26th and ends January 1st. And a powwow is a Native American festival. I love nonfiction books. And of course, back here, if you wanted to check this out, if you wanted to borrow this book from the library, there's resources in the back so that you can learn other cool things about other cultures. I've learned so many neat things about other cultures since I started working at the library, and it's just so interesting to me. I really love it. Okay, our last story is called Grace for President. Grace for President is written by Kelly DePuccio and illustrated by Leon Pham. I really like this story, and I think a lot of friends will be able to relate to Grace for President. Ooh, here's some presidents. Do you guys know who they are? We have Theodore Roosevelt. We have Abraham Lincoln. We have John F. Kennedy. We have Franklin Roosevelt. Oh, I don't recognize this president. I think she might be our title character. Here's our title page with some illustrations. They look nice. Grace for President by Kelly DiPuccio. Pictures by Leun Pham. Here's our publisher right here, of course, Hyperion Books. One Monday morning in September, Mrs. Barrington rolled out a big poster with all of the president's pictures on it. Grace Campbell could not believe her eyes. Where are the girls? That is a very good question, said Mrs. Barrington. The truth is, our country has never had a woman president. No girl president? Ever? Grace asked. No, I'm afraid not, said Mrs. Barrington. Grace sat at her desk and stewed. No girls? Who'd ever heard of such a crazy thing? Finally, she raised her hand. Yes, Grace? I've been thinking it over, and I'd like to be president. Several students in the class laughed. Well, I think that's a star-spangled idea, Grace, said Mrs. Barrington. In fact, we can have our own election right here at Woodrow Wilson Elementary. The snickering in the room stopped. Grace smiled. Would anyone else like to run for president? Mrs. Barrington asked the class. Nobody raised their hand. Becoming president was gonna be easy, Grace thought. The next day, Mrs. Barrington made an announcement. In the name of democracy, I have invited Mr. Waller's class to join our election. Their class has nominated Thomas Cobb to be their presidential candidate. Grace's heart sank. Thomas was the school spelling bee champion. His experiments always took a blue ribbon at the science fair, and he was captain of the soccer team. Becoming president wasn't going to be so easy after all, Grace thought. The teachers put the names of all the 50 states and the District of Columbia into a hat. Everyone except for Grace and Thomas got to choose a state. I'm Texas, said Anthony. I'm New Hampshire, said Rose. I'm Michigan, said Robbie. But what does the number 17 mean? Each state is assigned a number of electoral votes. That number is determined by how many people live in that state, said Mrs. Barrington. Each of you will be a representative for your state. Altogether, our country has 538 electoral votes, Mr. Waller explained. On election day, the candidate who receives 270 electoral votes or more wins the election. Why 270? Asked Rose. That's more than half of all the electoral votes, Mr. Waller said. Becoming president really wasn't going to be so easy, Grace thought. She does look a bit worried, doesn't she? Grace came up with a campaign slogan. Make history. Vote Grace Campbell for president. Thomas came up with his own campaign slogan. Vote for Thomas Cobb, the best man for the job. That's a rhyme. Grace listened to what issues were important to the students, and she made a list of campaign promises. A peaceful school, no bullies. A cleaner school, no littering. Better hot lunches. No more fish stick tacos. I like fish tacos. Thomas made up his own list of promises. Free tutoring, free soccer lessons, fish stick tacos every week. Grace made campaign posters and buttons. Thomas made posters and buttons too. Each week, the teachers set aside time for the candidates to meet with their constituents. Polls were taken. Voters were making their choices. There's Grace answering all the questions that are being asked of her. And there's Thomas answering questions being asked of him. I see one friend here who looks like he might be listening a little more to Grace. Interesting. Grace continued to campaign. There's a button, a sticker. It says, Grace for President. Vote for Grace. At recess, she gave speeches. During lunch, she handed out free cupcakes. After school, she held rallies. Meanwhile, Thomas wasn't worried. He had cleverly calculated that the boys held slightly more electoral votes than the girls. At recess, Thomas studied his spelling words. During lunch, he worked on his latest science experiment. And after school, he played soccer. Even before the election, Grace made good on her promises. She joined the safety squad. She organized a school beautification committee, and she volunteered her own time in the school cafeteria. Well, that's how it works, friends. You gotta do the hard work. Looks like Grace is tired from hard work. In early November, Woodrow Wilson Elementary hosted a special Election Day assembly. Grace and Thomas took their places on stage as the school band began to play. Henry was the first representative to approach the microphone. The Yellowhammer State of Alabama casts its 9 electoral votes for Thomas Cobb. Fletcher said, the last frontier state of Alaska casts its 3 electoral votes for the best man for the job, Thomas Cobb. Hannah called out, the Great Canyon State of Arizona casts its 10 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. And so it went. State after state cast their electoral votes. The scoreboard in the gymnasium kept track of the totals. The voting demonstration was quickly coming to an end. Clara approached the podium. The Badger State of Wisconsin casts its 10 votes for my best friend, Grace Campbell. Grace looked at the scoreboard. Thomas had 268 electoral votes. She had 267. There was only one state still accounted for. Wyoming. Thomas grinned. Grace felt sick. Sam walked up to the microphone. He looked at Thomas. He looked at Grace. He looked down at Grace's handmade flag. Sam didn't say a word. "What are you waiting for?" Thomas whispered. The band stopped playing. All eyes were on Wyoming. Finally, Sam cleared his throat. The equality state of Wyoming casts its 3 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. The gymnasium erupted in loud cheers and a few boos. Mrs. Barrington approached the podium. With 270 electoral votes, the winner is Grace Campbell. Thomas looked stunned. Grace hugged Sam. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Sam handed Grace his flag. "Because," he said, "I thought you were the best person for the job." The following week, the students in Mrs. Barrington's class were preparing for their career day presentations. Grace volunteered to go first. She stood at the front of the room and glanced at the posters still hanging on the wall. "My name is Grace Campbell, and when I grow up, I'm going to be President of the United States." This time, everyone believed that she would. And look, there she is in the future in front of the White House being sworn in as president. There's a really long author's note, but I won't read that one tonight. And there's a picture of Mount Rushmore. And there's Grace. This is a fun story. I love that story. I hope you guys really enjoyed our stories tonight. I had such a great time sharing them with you. Some of my very favorite stories that I got to share with you. So, it is Monday night. That means I'll see you guys again Wednesday morning at 10:30 right here for our virtual story time. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, make sure you brush your teeth, wash your face. Good night, friends.